Welcome to the Bowhunter Podcast. All bow hunting, all the time. Now, here's your host, editor Christian Berg.
All right, welcome back to the Bowhunter Podcast. We are all bow hunting all the time, and today we are going to be talking about a topic that I think is going to be of interest to just about everyone because it has to do with your hunting property, whether that's for those of you maybe who already own your own, maybe not, but for everybody else, which I think is most of us, we'd like to have our own place, but maybe we don't. And we're going to be talking about real estate and leasing, and do you need a hunting lease? And I've got a couple guys with me on the show today. Happy to have them. I've got Mac Christian and Aaron Sutton from National Land Realty. These guys specialize in property management, selling property, leasing property. Mac, welcome to the show.
How is it going, Christian? I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. It's going well. And it's a little chilly here in Pennsylvania, but not as chilly as it is for you out in Idaho, I understand.
Yeah, we're at 43 degrees right now. I just spent the entire weekend standing in soccer fields watching my son play while the wind blasted us across the field. So it's nice to be inside right now.
Well, let me tell you something. I think I mentioned this on another show, sort of like in another parallel universe. I'm a PIAA sports official here in Pennsylvania. So there's nothing like umpiring a game in the snow and that sort of thing. It's really can be brutal, especially early in the season. But gosh, we're in mid-May at this point, so it shouldn't be this bad. So my other guest, also from National Land Realty, and looks like you're sitting in the truck today. I've got Mr. Aaron Sutton out there on the road doing what he do, I assume.
Yes, sir. This is my office. I hate to say it, but I spend more time in this little seat right here than I spend anywhere else.
Well, so we can tell from Aaron's southern drawl there that we've got many parts of the country represented. Where are you from, Aaron?
I am on the East Coast in North Carolina, about an hour from the coast, and I work the North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, South Carolina area real heavy.
Gotcha. So listen, before we dive into this discussion, and I know it's going to be really interesting, just a quick background, Mac, about yourself and National Land Realty.
Yeah, so I'm located in Boise, Idaho. I grew up all running around the outdoors. My dad was a logger. My mom's side of the family, feed mill that I got. I always like to joke in agriculture, you don't have kids, you just increase your workforce. So I ended up being part of that workforce. I started working in a feed mill around 8, being around agriculture. I've always been around the outdoors and love it. I think I was in elk camp on a horse before my first birthday. So I had unique outdoors experience, always been around it. Joined up with National Land Realty about 4 years ago. It's a very cool company. We have around 430 agents in around 43 states. We work nationwide. We focus on technology, the technology side of real estate, particularly overhead views and three-dimensional touring, so you can get a viewpoint of land. It's been an emphasis from the company since their inception is to focus on technology, and that's not changed in all these years. And now we're moving on into the AI era, and so we work on that side. I work with the marketing team here. So I'm the third wheel in the conversation, which is kind of relaxing. I run our podcast, the National Land Podcast, and I work with that, and I get to defer to the expert here, Aaron.
I don't know if I'd call me an expert, but I have been in the business about 18 years total in real estate, and in the land industry for about 10 years now. Came on board with National Land in 2017. Build a team, across the 3 or 4 states that I work. And about 2 years ago, we saw that there was a platform for leasing that wasn't being serviced completely. So that's where we kind of jumped into it head first and took it and run with it.
Yeah, so you're the recreational leasing director, Aaron, and Mac, you're the chief marketing officer. So, when I think about leasing, it's interesting because Mac, you're out there in Idaho. When I think of the West, I'm an East Coast guy. Aaron's an East Coast guy. All us Easterners, we think of the West as like these areas of vast public lands, and leasing maybe isn't as big of a thing, at least in our mind. But you'll probably tell me, oh no, Christian, like this is getting to be huge out west too. Because when I think of leasing, I think whitetails. I think Illinois, Kansas, Ohio. All your traditional sort of big buck Midwestern states is where it started. And then it's just been spreading out from there all around the country. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think, Mac?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not wrong on a lot of levels. If you cut the country down to Mississippi, right, you've got basically two completely separate entities when it comes to land management. If you look on any map and like a public land map, the numbers are shocking when you see them for the first time. It goes from 90% to 10% when you're talking to public land. And back east, leasing is the way to go if you want to get into good hunting territory. Out west, it's always been the public lands because we always joke out here that I hunt where other people are not dumb enough to hunt at. Yeah, if I'll walk 15 miles in or whatever, and you're just not going to see as many people. A lot of that's changed. If you've done Western hunts in the last 4 to 5 years, you've encountered more and more people. There's more people moving around public lands out here. So now leasing becomes a tool to get away from people. It's the only guarantee you can have to getting away from other people to help you get access to the wildlife that you're pursuing. So it's becoming more popular. It's definitely not the same, but it's definitely becoming a thing.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned technology earlier, because I think that's an area where technology is a double-edged sword. It's funny, we're working on our August big game special right now. I think it was actually for our July issue that just came out. I published a story about a guy who is from West Virginia, actually. So he's an East Coast guy. He grew up bow hunting in the mountains of West Virginia, and he was always enamored with hunting out west. And over the past 20 years, he's gotten to be, very successful as a Western hunter. But he uses that technology, exactly to your point. Nowadays, with Onyx and all these other tools that are out there, people are actually looking at where the roads are, where the trails are, and figuring out where the most remote areas where they think they can get away from people, except now everybody's doing that. And so to your point, Mac, those places where it used to be like nobody else is crazy enough to go here, now you like hike 10 or 12 miles back in from the truck, and you realize like there's 3 other groups of hunters in that same area. So it's the same thing we've been experiencing back east for generations with that competition. You're now seeing it more and more out in the West.
Yeah, there's a combination that I've had numerous hunts blown that way, getting back into the country and seeing a couple people walking ridgeline and we're 10 miles in. It's like, well, have fun, guys. Like that encounter has happened more and more. The other one is like there's definitely legislative risk. There's been increasing conversations about public land access and stuff like that. It's becoming more of a thing to be conscientious of, and then that's where the leasing conversation comes up.
Yeah, and to shift it over to Aaron, this is really what it boils down to. Is at the end of the day, and you touched on it, Mac, you just don't want to have to worry about being bothered. You don't want to have to worry about other people, but not just competition from other hunters out west, right? It could be just hikers or campers or off-road, ATV riders or horseback riders or whatever. And back east, it's the cranky, neighbor or it's that guy that has permission to hunt the same property, but you can't stand him because he doesn't understand playing the wind. He likes to show up late and walk right through the middle of the bedding area on the way to his stand. And you got up at 2 a.m. and, you've already been in there for 2 hours and he screwed everything up. And at some point you just throw up your hands and you're like, I can't take it anymore, Aaron. I got to have my own place.
Yes, sir. Let me touch on a little bit of what y'all were just talking about, the eastern side of this country versus the western side. One thing I've noticed is the western side has larger land masses also, like larger parcels. Where we're over here, I mean, you could have a 20-acre piece all the way up to, $10,000. So that one of the things about leasing is that plays into that is the pricing. You know, if you've got a 40,000 acre lease over here in Idaho, you can't afford, not many people are going to be able to afford a $15 or $20 an acre lease on that. Where over here in the east side, that's going to be standard for a 50 acre tract or, 200-300 acres. So that's one of the biggest discrepancies or differences in the two sides.
Yeah, well, and that's of course, we probably should just dive into the money, because that's going to be the first thing that people think, right? It's like, hey, in a perfect world, we'd all just get our checkbooks out, we'd write the check, $2 million, we'd get ourselves a few hundred acres of prime, deer hunting ground or whatever, and be done with it. But we don't have that. So leasing is obviously an intermediary step between just having permission and owning it outright. And obviously there's a lot of real estate there, no pun intended, within that leasing realm, right? Because leasing can vary a lot in cost, and it can vary a lot in what exactly is included with those leases, right, Aaron?
Yes, sir. So I mean, it varies from state to state, honestly. You got your 3 or 4 states here: Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and maybe even into Georgia, where your prices are going to be pretty comparable. But then you get a little bit further west, where you're running into your trophy deer in your Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois area. That's a different pricing. Then you also got to look at, is there cabin somewhere for people to stay at, or do they got to go rent a motel room or drag a camper or whatever, camp out? So if you've got a place that a residency on it that the hunters can use, you're literally going to double your value. And then it also depends on the size of the blocks and how much or what can you hunt within those blocks. So some hunting leases are deer only, some are deer, turkey, bears, hogs, you name it, you see it, you kill it kind of thing. So obviously if it's a deer only lease and you can't hunt turkey season, that's going to hurt you a little bit on your value on that. Then you go into the summertime. Is there fishing ponds? Is there, things for people to do outside of the hunting season? Increases your value.
So give me some actual estimates or ballparks on the cost of leasing. You mentioned the different areas. So you're there in the South. So North Carolina, South Carolina, what's it going to cost me, and how does that compare, like you said, to Illinois, where somebody might think, hey, I want to shoot a 160-inch buck every year?
Yes, sir. So here in North Carolina, we're running about $10 to $15 an acre, depending on those parameters I was just talking about. And that's going to be pretty much in most of these little states that are right here kind of adjoining me. Then you get into the Midwest, and you're talking about $40 to $50 an acre for a good Illinois lease. The trophy quality just drives the price up on those properties. I'm currently in a lease in Kentucky, Kansas, and Missouri, and our Kansas lease, we're in Southwest Kansas. That's done completely different. Our landowner, he owns about 50,000 acres, 40 or 50,000, big farmer, and we couldn't afford to pay for a 50,000 acre lease like I was talking about earlier. So what he does is he charges us per hunter. There's 7 of us, and he charges us right at, don't tell my wife, but $6,000 each. So that makes sense.
So he's making 40. He's got $42K coming in every year.
$42,000 coming in, plus he charges us for the house that's included. He doesn't include that in the pricing, but if we want to stay there, it's like $20 a night or something. Something relatively cheap. So yeah, my Missouri lease is $5,000. But you get to shoot 2 bucks versus your $1 draw tag in Kansas. And it's running us probably about $60 an acre. And that comes with a house that we don't have to pay for outright.
So really anywhere. Yeah. And so it can be as much as 5 times as much in the best areas as it would be in what we'd say, not a bad area, but we'll say more of a marginal area in terms of trophy quality and reputation.
Yeah, so here in North Carolina, I mean, you're going to if you shoot 130-inch deer, you put your rifle away, you sell it because that you have maxed it out. All right. Where, our Kansas lease, we shoot at least a 190 to 200-inch deer every year.
Well, I was going to say, if you shoot a 130-inch deer in Kansas, somebody else in your lease is getting mad at you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to be on the same, you got to, I've used the old phrase of birds of a feather flock together. You've got to have hunters that are in a lease that are of the same mindset. Are we trophy hunting? Are we meat hunting? What are we doing here, guys? And have a plan.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just thinking, I'm rolling all these numbers in my head as you're talking, and I'm like, okay, again, I come back to North Carolina, $10 an acre, 100-acre lease. I mean, gosh, maybe I could just pay $1,000. I could have 100 acres just for myself. Whereas somewhere like Illinois at 5 times that much, now maybe I need a couple of buddies to go in with me, and it's different. And then you've got to obviously, like you said, you got to have some ground rules because otherwise you're just back to the situation I described earlier where, you're in there getting ready to go, and Bubba's pulling up in his truck, and him and the kids are running out there on a mushroom hunt in the middle of your turkey season or something.
Yeah. It also, I just had a really good thought that slipped my mind on me, but I got to start taking some notes better. But
he didn't take his Prevagen this morning, Mac.
Oh no. Well, I was going to throw something in. We were talking about West Coast versus East Coast, and another thing I didn't touch on it is leasing also means different things in different areas. So out here, a lot of the leases that you see are public land leases with guiding outfits. They end up working a lease with federal government or whatever to be able to get access to take hunters in, and that means something completely different as opposed to the private land leases. And Aaron talking about the cost of what it is on the East Coast versus Midwest, and then out West there's not really as much of an established marketplace for leases to where it ends up being a really independent thing. Like you could talk to a farmer and lease that land to hunt for $1,000, and somewhere just down the road could be up in the range that Aaron's talking about, where you're talking like $15 an acre, anywhere up to $40 an acre, depending on what migrates through that territory. It becomes much more of a variance once you get across the Mississippi and move out west.
Yeah, because there's not. Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, I was going to say, my thought just came back to me. So it also depends on the amount of hunters, like what you were talking about a while ago with the 100 acres for $1,000. Well, here in North Carolina, we have a 2-week bow season, but we have an almost 3-month-long rifle season. So safely to hunt, I tell people you need 80 to 120 acres per rifle, but you need 20 to 40 per bow. So if you've got 100 acres out in Illinois, it might be $6,000 or $8,000, but you can fit 2 or 3 guys on that comfortably bow hunting. Where here in North Carolina, rifle season, you're shooting 400 or 500 yards, you're easily encompassing that 100-acre tract yourself.
Yeah, that's interesting. And of course, I mean, I was surprised actually what you just said. A very short archery season there in North Carolina.
Very
2
short.
weeks.
Yes, sir. It's right at 15 days. It changes from year to year. And then we have a 1-week muzzleloader season, and then you go straight into rifle about October 8th, 10th, something like that, and it runs till January 1st.
Wow. So you're in North Carolina, you probably have much more of a rifle hunting culture than a bow hunting culture.
Well, we could open up Pandora's box by talking about our biggest, what some people say is negative and some people say is positive, but we have a lot of dog hunting that's here, running deer with walkers. I have done it. I don't really enjoy it. It's not my style of hunting, but I'm not going to knock somebody else's style.
Well, yeah, we're not going to go down that rabbit trail because that's too big of a topic today's episode. But anyway, so you know, where does National Land Realty come in all this? Because obviously, if somebody's looking for a lease, like you said, there's ways to go about it. From literally, yeah, you could do. I think Mac, you said it. I could try to reach out individually to every landowner, you know, who has property in this entire area that I'm interested in, right? And just keep throwing darts at the dartboard until something sticks, right? But then I got to figure it all out myself. You know, obviously you guys streamline that process for people who are interested in leases. I don't know which one of you guys wants to tackle that.
Aaron, I'm going to let you run the department. I'm going to let you touch on that.
I was going to let you go with it, Mac. You're the marketing man.
All right, well, I'll jump in first. So a lot of people go about this independently, right? Landowners will go about it independently. Buyers will go about it independently. And they jump into agreements, kind of hoping they got things right. As they're investigating, they'll use different things. Like they'll use the same. Everybody that uses a GIS system is using technically the same technology to look around for things. It's a government system that we all pull information off of, everybody from Onyx to us, right? But we use some segregation in our map searches that maybe somebody doesn't think about. We can help people identify parcels that are strong, but I mean, you know, a lot of hunters can identify their properties, right? So we can jump in, help people. A lot of people like to do it independently. The part that we sort of fulfill with both buyers of leases or leasees or landowners that want to work with their leases, we help them set up their legal contracts. It's just we're just another tool in somebody's tool belt as far as being able to say, you know, hey, this is a good agreement. Hey, you might want to think about, you know, leasing more land. You know, if you're doing mixed use, we can help sort of set up the language in there. And that's probably the single biggest part is a lot of people work by handshake, and a handshake is a great way to get into an argument with somebody. And so we try to eliminate that and build contracts to where there's a good relationship, because if you're leasing land and you're allowing people on it, you want to make sure that those people are going to be good stewards of your land, and they're not going to upset your cattle. They're not going to walk across your crops or something like that. You want to make sure you have that all in gear. And Aaron's had a case too, where, you know, you could get on there. Guy loved his turkeys, right? Doesn't want anybody messing with his turkeys. And you've got to be able to stipulate those things. Otherwise, again, you have disagreements. So National Land is kind of taken on leasing as a way to just be of value to landowners and potential leasees. You know, same people that are going to look at land for lease are eventually going to look for land for sale. We help with that too. And it's just one more thing to be able to add value to landowners and people who utilize land.
Let me ask you this, Aaron. Yeah. Let me ask you this. This will piggyback on what Max said. Like I'm on your website. I look here, right? You don't have any leases currently listed in my part of Pennsylvania, but let's say I want to lease somewhere relatively close to home. Can I contact you and say, Aaron, I want a leasing agent? Like Max said, I'm not in the market to go buy a farm, but I want to go lease a farm. Can you help me find a farm in my area? Can you help me find a landowner who wants to lease ground? Can I negotiate something? Can you be my leasing agent to do that? Is that something like that's a thing?
Yes, sir, it is. And basically we're the intermediary between a landowner and a leasee. We're just a middleman connecting the dots, whether it be through the example that you're bringing right there, or is it just a farmer that we know down the road that, you know, he might have passed away and his wife's left with the farm and she doesn't know how much that farm and hunting leases are worth. So from an education standpoint, we can help intermediary that, bring that together. So it's really simple. You know, don't overthink a leasing, but we also set up insurances, you know, go through the stuff of what can be hunted, kind of make sure everybody's on the same page. So kind of like what Mac was saying, you know, there's a lot of arguments that can happen over a handshake because everything wasn't wrote out. And, you know, 50 years ago, that was absolutely fine. You know, it was just a given. We shake your hand. Yeah, man, go hunt whatever you want to. Just be respectful. Where now, there's a lot more competition out there for the hunting leases. So if you screw up, you're going to lose your lease, and somebody else is going to move right in there to all the hard work that you've done.
Well, and I tell you a couple other things. Think about this. Here's a situation I think everybody can relate to. Let's say, you have a property where you've hunted for many, many years. Maybe your dad hunted there. Maybe, you started hunting there when you were a kid and now you're taking your own kids hunting. But to your point, Aaron, the world has changed. You may go to the landowner and say, hey, I'd like to lease this. And maybe the landowner's first reaction is, hey, we don't have to lease this. Like, your guys are good. We have this good long-term relationship. We're friends. But you're like, no, even if you're saying you don't want anything, let me write you a check for $500 and we're going to sign this paper. And I'll tell you why. It's going to do two things. One, when other people come to you as a landowner and they want permission to hunt here, you don't really want everybody running around on your property. It makes it real easy for you to just tell people, no, I've got the property leased out. They don't need to know, the financial arrangements between us. It gives you an opportunity to say, no, it's leased out to Christian and his family, and they're pretty much, have it. And so then on your side as a leasee, it gives you some authority to basically say, hey, I understand, we've had this, but if we formalize this, now I have some standing when I run into people. Again, I'm also not just enjoying your property, right? I'm respecting your property. I'm helping you to control your property. When I run into somebody out there, I can tell them, no, I have a legal agreement to have the rights, to hunt on this property. And it's actually against the law for you to be interfering, in my ability to enjoy this that I have paid for. So, I think that there's a lot of good reasons for leasing, even though, to your point, and you guys both said it, we all kind of missed the good old days when everything was a handshake. We didn't have to write checks, pull the money out of our pockets. But at the same time, to actually have some things that are set in black and white, it's good for the landowner, obviously, from a financial standpoint, but it's good for hunters because you know exactly where you stand.
Well, to touch base on that a little bit further, it's one thing that people think about when they think hunting leases is year to year. It's a year-to-year lease where within our contract, we do have time frames set up because, it protects a landowner that, hey, I've got this 5 years with this group of hunters, and they can, that little old lady that, is living off of a budget, now she can budget, $5,000 a year. Where from the leasee standpoint, who wants to do a whole lot of work to a tract of land that next year you don't know if you'll have it? They could sell it or whatever. So we put those protections in there. You're more willing to put a little money into the property, build food plots, stuff like that, if you've got a 5 to 10 year lease in it. You've got a little more skin in the game that way.
Absolutely. We were going to say something, Mac.
Yeah, I was yeah. Good observation. So I was going to jump in on what Aaron was saying, and then kind of what you asked about helping people find land. Is it in land? I'm just going to say that the biggest thing that we have is it depends. We always answer things with it depends, and it just goes across the board. We end up being and as far as finding new land, we can. That's where that local knowledge comes into play. Our agents are all over the country. They're going to know their local area. They're going to know the landholders that are able to do those things. There's different marketing routes that we can find. A lot of the times it has to do with ROI, right? Is it a big enough piece of land to justify us running an expense to run a mailer out to get the right landowners? That's a huge variance of it depends. The other part of that is if you're a landowner, I don't know if your communities are like the small communities I've grown up around, but if you only do business with the people in town and then you have a conflict with somebody that's local, that conflict could go 40 years. It could get ugly and quick. And being able to market a lease outside of that area and pull in people that want it, are eager to hunt that land, and will come in and cultivate it, and it's a good business partner for the landowner. Being able to market that outside of your local area and being able to get a tenant that you can work with, it just opens up your possibilities. If you can market the lease, you get a wider array of people to choose from, and that lets you sort of pick and choose who you want to work with. because I've seen those things go sour where somebody pays some money to go hunt some land and then they mess with the place, and then you have, you know, a disagreement that goes decades, and, you know, you get all the hot tea in the local community of the gossip, and, you know, that can go ugly. And so this way it just works in the benefit of landowners to be able to market something like that. So yeah, we do have those capabilities. It just depends.
Yeah. Oh, you just made me smile when you said that. I'm thinking about people. It's 100% like that in my area. Like you'll hear people like, you know, I mean, I'm 51. You'll hear people talk about somebody and they'll say, yeah, you know, and he did this and he did that. And Mac hasn't changed since high school. They ain't liked you since high school, man. And they still don't like you. And they didn't forget what you did when you were 17, brother.
That's true. That is true. But I'm a prime example of what Mac's talking about. You know, it's taken me 6 or 7 years to finally find good leases in that little core Midwest that I like to hunt. You know, I've been through some bad ones. I mean, I've seen some shady stuff, and I've just walked away from a lease one time. I've lost a couple of friendships over leases, but what Mac was talking about is the technology, being able to put a property out there, and then somebody that's got a tract of land in Kansas that's leasing it to somebody in North Carolina. That wouldn't have happened 50 years ago. You know, so right. It's the information, the technology, you know, being able to put 2 and 2 together is huge. And there's a business there.
Yeah, exactly. Technology has made it a lot easier for a guy, you know, wherever you said, like Kansas, to find somebody in Idaho who wants to come and hunt, you know, which would have been a lot harder back in the old days when you'd have to get the phone book out and figure out how to find that person.
Well, I'm going to call Mac and just tell him to put me on something.
There you go. Well, you touched on something else earlier, Aaron, and that's insurance. And that's a big deal too. I mean, when you're dealing with landowners, because a lot of times, even when you're just trying to get permission, people are hesitant because they don't want liability of, maybe they'd like to let you hunt, but then in today's world, if you own some property, you start to think, geez, what if something happens out there and Christian decides to sue me? And now I've got a real problem on my hands.
Yes, sir. So we at National Land, we have a blanket policy that whenever we sign up somebody with a lease, we say, hey, do you want to use our policy? And, you know, that usually runs about 40 to 50 cents per acre, roughly, with a minimum of like $150. Or there's AmericanHuntingLiability.com. There's 3 or 4 that you could Google also, and you can put your own insurance policy in place. But we have to have that certificate of insurance before we will release the contracts to everybody. And we've got that's kind of like the final process in it is, does everybody got their insurance together? Now go hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so, like you said, it's not a lot of money for the insurance, and it provides quite a bit of coverage, I believe.
That, you know, you million, and we've got $1 million and $2 million policies is what we offer.
Yeah, so
most people go with the $1 million.
That's pretty good, right? It's more than I've got in the bank. So chances are you take my settlement because you can't squeeze any more blood out of this stone.
Right.
Well, I mean, so what else, you know, let's just say, you know, okay, it's the middle of May. I need to get some ground, you know, for this coming fall. What do I do? Where do I go? How do I get started now, Aaron?
So you can touch base with us at nationalland.com. You know, you can reach out to a Pennsylvania agent, or, you know, if you're in Louisiana, Mississippi, we've, like Mac said in the very beginning, we've got 430 agents across the country. I guarantee you each one of them agents that are actively working know 3 to 5 properties off the top of their head that could be leased out. Just here you go, kind of thing. I know of 2 or 3 dozen.
So you're saying that within your area. In other words, not my area, because you're there, you're not familiar with my area, but in the area, the territory that you're working regularly in the sales of properties, even though you might not necessarily have a whole bunch of leases currently on your website. If I called you up today and said, hey, Aaron, I'd like to get a lease in South Carolina, North Carolina, you would say, oh, I probably would have some landowners that would be interested in working with you.
Yes, sir. Either myself or one of our other agents that work with us. You know, your guys that do a lot of the business, they run into more landowners than somebody that's just trying to sell one property a year and retired and just kind of wants to fish all the time. So, you know, I can get you in touch with the local guy that is more involved. That would probably be a better source.
So hit you up on your website, Mac?
Yes, sir. You can do email asutton@nationalland.com or look me up on our website. I got my phone number and everything established right there.
Yeah, you can. I'm all about people hassling Aaron, so you can look Aaron up on the National Land Realty website. You can look up any agent in any community through any office on our website and find somebody you want to work with. Look at their backgrounds. To Aaron's point too, a lot of people, and to your question, Christian, a lot of people who have land that are looking at leasing it don't actively market. It's not like I'm throwing out a newspaper ad to lease my land. Usually it's an introduction. It's usually something local. That's where it comes down to having local knowledge and where it's useful to talk to an agent. A lot of time these things aren't marketed. So, and it's usually somebody like us that's marketing it when it happens. So it's one where landowners, if they want to get the word out to get a hold of us, we can help do that. It's just not as common for people to take that route. That's why we're getting the information out. And then on the consumer side, that it is where there's a landholder, they have some mixed use possibility, and they've talked about it with their local agent. And a lot of this is like just conversations, handshakes, and local knowledge that have to get these introductions made. And that's where it's useful to talk to an agent like ours.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too. Even as Aaron was talking, it's for the landowner as well. That a landowner, because a lot of times, I mean, if you put yourself in the shoes of a property owner, it's not that they wouldn't necessarily allow somebody to do something, but they don't want to deal with the hassle of like screening people. Maybe they're skeptical of people they don't know, but they can turn that all over to you guys and be like, look, let's say I'm the landowner. I can go to Aaron and I can say, hey, listen, I'm willing to lease out, hunting rights on my property here, but I don't really want to be dealing with people all the time. I don't want to be screening people. You find me a group of people who are willing to pay what we think is a fair market price. You bring them to me. I mean, I still want to meet them. I want to sign off on it, but I really don't want a whole lot of headaches. You go and bring me these people, and if they're good people, then we'll do the deal. And, Aaron gets his commission or whatever, and everybody's happy.
That's right. And we have those tough conversations that a landowner might not want to have. For example, if somebody has gone out and had a campfire and drank some beer and left, beer cans everywhere. Well, the little old lady that owns the property, she might be scared to have that conversation with that 30-year-old, three men sitting over there. Hey, I don't want you drinking on my property anymore. That's where we come in and we go to them and say, hey,
you're going to get a call from Aaron. He's going to take you behind the woodshed. Yes, sir.
That's right. It's strike one, and then strike two, you're out. And we'll have that tough conversation and say, hey, you broke the terms of the lease agreement, and you're out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say, I can't let a good marketing opportunity get through. One thing that we do specialize, I mentioned the technology we specialize in. One piece of, and you brought up, e-scouting, using technology to scout properties. We've sort of enhanced this way of viewing land in a 3D manner, where it's aerial photography as opposed to like a GIS system that you'll see with the Google Earth, where it's a 3D rendering. We use actual photography that's up to date to where people can come in through it, and when they're looking at a possible lease, we give them a viewpoint where essentially, I mean, we've sold properties where no one's ever set foot on the ground, and they've just viewed it from this 360 view that we've set up because it's a 3D rendering, and they liked it enough to purchase it with sight unseen, basically. And so we can run the same thing with leasing, where we enable people to scout your land and see the possibilities. So this is where it's really good for a premium piece of land if you really want to get the word out there and allow people to see it. And this is exactly what I'm getting. That's one thing that we're able to offer landowners as well. I had to jump in there. I saw my opportunity.
Yeah, well, look, and there's also one thing that's in it for us as the agents. We've talked about the pros and cons of landowners and leasees, all that, but it's not a big money maker for us as far as the leasing goes. If you get a $40,000-$50,000 lease out in the Midwest, you can make a little bit of money. But like Mac was saying, we sell property that's our bread and butter. So if we're dealing with these leases, and that little old lady I keep referring to, she goes, I really just need to go ahead and sell it. Who's going to be the first one that she calls? Most likely me, if we built that rapport, that good relationship. So that gets our foot in the door of, being able to make that sale.
Yeah, well, and on the side of the leasees too, I mean, that could be a disappointing thing, but on the other hand, that might be an opportunity for those leasees to purchase that property as well. And I'm sure you've had that happen, a situation where a group of people were leasing a property for a period of time and then they were able to purchase it.
Yep. I had it happen in Virginia last year. About a 300-acre tract that Weyerhaeuser owned. They were two really nice older men were leasing it, and I ran into them at the gate the day I was flying my drone taking pictures of the property, and told them it'd be on the market within the week. And they went ahead and put it under contract within 2 days of that meeting.
That is great. Well, I mean, why don't you do this? Tell me a little bit about the hunting that you guys have coming up for this year. Do you get to hunt, Aaron, or do the Mac just make you work every day, even in a hunting season?
Well, Mac, my wife, there's a bunch of people making me work every day. But me and my wife have a very, very good relationship. And this is our deal.
That's what he said. He's said it here on the podcast. He wants to, he's manifesting that. He's telling the world that they have a good relationship.
There's 52 weeks in a year. And I have told my wife I will give her 46 weeks all to her. Here you go. But I just want 6. 1 week in September for muzzleloader season in Kansas, about 2 to 3 weeks during the rut from Halloween to November in Missouri. And then again in December, go back to Kansas for our rifle season. And then I've got Kentucky also that I can kind of, it's really easy to drive there. I mean, it's about 8 hours from my house. So I can kind of fill in those little weak spots of, hey, I don't have nothing to do for 2 or 3 days. Let me go sit in the bow stand in Kentucky. So those are my 3 trips for this year. And I've just put in, I've got 4 points in Iowa. So I should be getting that next year. And then South Dakota also.
Sounds like you've also got another business on the side. I mean, I don't know if you've thought about this, but the 46-week marriage contract could be a huge stellar.
I feel like there's a book. There's a book somewhere in here.
The 46-week marriage. Yes, a book, Mac. I mean, a whole digital video series on how you too can have a 46-week, and it wouldn't matter. See, if you're into hunting, or you're into just whatever, that gives golfing. That gives those guys 6 weeks a year to go do whatever they want.
Yeah, but the key to it is you have to have a very understanding wife, and mine luckily is.
Right, I never imagined you as a marriage counselor, but I'm seeing this now, Aaron. I think this needs to happen.
Man, I don't know if we need to put it out there in front of everybody or if it needs to be like a men's only kind of thing so the women won't figure out the gigs up. They have figured this thing out.
What about you, Mac? Funny. You got any good adventures lined up this year?
Yeah. So we've got spring going on right now. I think we're trying to pull one last trip together here in June. At least that's one. But my friend was just texting me to set that up last night.
Do you go out? I think. Am I right? You guys can bait in Idaho in the spring, right?
To my knowledge, no.
No?
There's no baiting.
Okay, must
like,
be the wrong state.
there's
Utah, maybe. I don't remember. Because go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't bait. So I just don't even. We run strictly spot and stock with my buddies and I, and so it's one of those where I have the ignorance is bliss situation with that. And so yeah, we'll go out and we run just backcountry spot and stock for bear, and then I'll be running around this year. I'm playing with a stick bow and chasing elk here in the fall, and usually do that with elk and deer, and I'd kind of keep up with bird hunting throughout the year. We'll be doing a lot of backcountry chucker and stuff like that. So we'll do that.
So you do some traditional bow hunting, is that right?
Yeah. I've actually, me, my wife, and both of my sons have been doing traditional bow for 15 years now. So I think my youngest son, he's been shooting a bow since he was about 2. So we've been running around with stick bows. There was one of my best friends, his dad took us under his wing, and he's an old traditional guy, shoots with flintlock, only longbow. And he kind of showed us the way, and we've all been doing that ever since.
So what are you shooting? Are you shooting like some bows that are made local out there,
I commissioned a gentleman named Pat Lopez out of Council, Idaho, that does handmade bows, and he's one of the first people I met when I started doing traditional archery, and it was cool to commission him to build my bow. I got a nice little 56 pounder.
A longbow or a recurve?
It is I would call it a reflex deflex. It's sort of a hybrid between the two.
Okay. And so how far do you feel comfortable hunting wise shooting with that?
Not nearly as far as you with your compound. I'll put it that way.
And have you killed some stuff with it?
I've not been able to. This is the first year I'm running around with it. I've been doing competitions for 15 years now, and then I end up rifle hunting every year. I finally got my first shot at a deer here. Last year, shot under terrifically, embarrassingly, and so then now it's about calling elk in to try to play with me instead of me trying to chase them down.
Well, I mean, it's honestly, trad hunting is no joke, and you're trying to do it out there in the mountains in Idaho. It's like,
yeah,
dude, you know what you need to do? It's the only thing, because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, right? Like I'm a compound guy. I'm not a trad hunter. I have a couple traditional bows, and they're fun to shoot in the yard, you know. But as far as taking them out, again, you're handicapping yourself that much more.
Oh, a lot, yeah.
The only thing that I've ever killed with my bear recurve is a hog, and I did that errand down in Florida. And the reason I did that is there's a guy that I know down there that'll run dogs for hogs. So you go drive around until you cut a fresh track, and then they'll let the dogs go. So that's what you need, Mac, to get on the board. Have the dogs bay it up so you can kind of walk in there about 8 yards away, and then you just skewer the thing. That's what I needed. You know, I needed I tried actually out of a stand because he got some feeders down there. I missed. Did the same thing as you. I shot right under the pig at the feeder, and of course you're only going to get one shot because then they're all gone. So we had to go to the dogs after that.
I shot under, and we hiked up to a ridge, dropped my pack, turned around, a deer had walked up into me, and it was one of those no, this doesn't happen. This is not reality. So I shot under the deer, licked the arrow. I'm not joking. So it added the insult to injury. I got to walk away in shame because eventually, I moved and it spooked. But last year was my first year even taking the bow out for a walk. It was one of those I'm doing this, and after that experience, we're running that exclusively recurve now, and it's been a bird hunting tool for me for a long time. We've just done the competitions with my family and everything, and there's several grouse to my name now, so it's always been a thing there. Now thank
God for those grouse out there are dumb. And
yeah,
they'll sit there and just let you shoot them, which is kind of nice.
It's a chicken in the bag, man.
Especially when the elk hunting is slow, which is more often than not. But I wish you the best with that. On the plus side, Mac, carrying those trad bows is really
amazingly
easy.
light.
they weigh nothing. So on the plus side, you're not weighing yourself down, but you've got your work cut out for you. I hope you get it done. And I really appreciate you guys getting on, joining us today. Leasing, man, it's like, it's not even the future. It's like today. It's the reality for most of us in 2025, if you want to have a decent place anymore. So check them out at National Land Realty, and wish you guys both the best. Enjoy those 6 weeks, Aaron. I mean, I don't even get, I'm the editor of Bowhunter. I don't even get 6 weeks. I think my wife maybe gives me 3. That's about it.
You got to pick and choose your battles, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, guys. Well, it was great having you on. Enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for downloading the Bowhunter Podcast. All bow hunting, all the time. Pick up the latest issue of Bowhunter Magazine on your local newsstand or connect with us online at bowhunter.com.